software packages on here. When we first put this server in, you were running one. You've added and added and added to it, adding more users. We've already replaced the hard drives and went to bigger arrays. Those are getting filled again. So this thing is getting old. So be aware that even if we get this fixed, I still think we need to talk about replacing this. So
And were they warm to that suggestion?
yeah, they're always warm to it when they're locking up 3 times a day or two times a day.
That sounds like a great idea.
A new server fix everything. So then I'm trying to look for anything that can be causing this. I'm loading other debugging tools and I'm checking logs, but the only thing I see is I see one entry for some kind of mail. They've got some software that adds a signature to every outgoing email. I see errors related to that, so I disable that. Still locks up. I see an error related to something else. I disable that. It still locks up. So this is getting pretty frustrating for me. I can imagine for the client too, but I don't like these kind of jobs. There's no clear indication of what's going on.
I hate
no logs.
I hate those jobs.
And of course, this is their main server, and they've got a bunch of people. And now, of course, they're adding to it. I get wrong information. It locked up last night at midnight, so I log in at 6 in the morning, and I don't see any logs about it locking up at that time. And every time before that it's locked up, the only way to do it is to power it off and power it back on. And I said, well, okay, I just logged into it. Who powered it off and back on? Well, nobody. Okay, so then it didn't lock up. So
yeah, and speaking of that, that's why my favorite the command is system info, because the fourth or fifth lane down is uptime.
right.
Because I will tell people you need to reboot your bots in order for the changes to take effect. Oh, it's not working. Then, I use PS exec system turner tools that do a system info and see uptime is 2 days. I'm like, did you restart your computer? Oh yeah. No, let's do it again.
Which method did you use?
Was there a quarter in front of the power button?
So I show her it's not locking up. She's insisting that it's locking up every night around midnight. I said, who's telling you this? She said the night shift. So I don't know what the night shift is seeing, but the logs don't show any indication that it's locked up. And unless they have the key to the server room and are powering it off and powering it back on, then it didn't lock up. Because when we get there in the morning, it's working. She goes, oh, well, that's true. Yeah, they don't have a key. So I guess it's not locking up. Okay, so once we can rule out that, let's not add to it with I think it's locking up at these times. Let's go with times that we know it's locking up.
Well, I'm curious if you can use like Process Monitor or a Process Explorer, and but if it's happening again, they'll have to pay you. But within that hour, you can just see the processes there running in the background. I don't.
And when I tried that, I think okay, it's locking up at about 3:30, 4 o'clock every day. Let me try it. It doesn't lock up that day. I'm like, okay, great. So it's so intermittent, it's getting pretty annoying. And this might be my fault, but the last thing I did, I thought, okay, system-wide things, it's not doing it when there's nobody doing it. So maybe when there's a heavy load on the server, it's causing an issue. So of course, the RAID array controller. Let me check that. There's no error logs in the RAID utility, because they have some of the logs. You can see if there's any logs, any errors generated in that. It had the latest driver, but not the latest firmware. So I updated to the newest firmware. And this is a Dell server. And
The Power Edge.
yeah. And why this is just a pet peeve. Why can't they number their BIOSes with numbers?
Instead
Like
of
the desktops, like A19.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I ask you, I have version A19 BIOS, and there's an A20 out. Which one is newer? Well, A20, right?
Right.
Because it's numbers. Okay.
Instead of B19EF.
Yeah. I got B21X, and there's B5 or BD2D. I'm like, okay, which one's newer? 521 or 5BD? I don't understand. I should be able to ask a 6-year-old which one's better, which one's newer, and they should be able to tell me, but I don't understand these. there's no date next to the one I have. I just don't have 521X. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
5B2D is newer.
Or give me like a 1.258. Just give me where I can look at the first two numbers and know.
So I'm like, well, let me just download it and install it. So
Okay.
when I go to install it, it tells me, did this firmware is newer? Do you want to install? Okay, thank you. Yes, I want to install it. So I install that. Of course, I had everybody get out of the server, log off because I don't want any activity or as little activity as possible
Okay.
on the server. I don't want people doing a bunch of stuff. I'm trying to do this.
Were you on site or did you do this remotely through Windows?
I'm in log me in
Okay.
unattended access at this time. And anytime I do any kind of firmware, I give my standard warning to the customer. This could crash your system. Are you sure you want me to do it? What are they going to say? They have to say yes, but I'd like to tell them this, it could happen. I mean, this is why they give me the warning. I'm passing the warning along to you that it could crash your server and make it completely unbootable.
Is
But
is that when you say if you believe in a God, we should pray now? What?
I say, well, I'd like to say the good news is it can't get worse, but at least it boots up right now. So we'll see what happens. So it
Okay.
rebooted, came back up fine,
Okay.
luckily. So now I've got the new firmware. I've already had the latest driver, and that was 2 days ago,
And it still hasn't frozen up.
and it has not frozen up again. But every time the phone rings and I see it's them calling, I'm like, oh, they're calling, telling me it locked up again. But it's other things. They haven't called back with the server locking up
And
again.
and that's when you're happy. When it's some other obscure problem like Word keeps crashing every 3 minutes, yes, I'll take care of that. Let's start troubleshooting right now.
Yeah.
As long as it's not that forsaken server freezing.
And for no reason at all. This firmware has been on there for since we updated it last time for whatever reason.
Okay, and let me ask you this: what made you roll out the hardware? You know, much with like a desktop, the PC, power supply, RAM.
You mean on the server itself?
Yes.
I didn't. I didn't yet. My next, I was well because I saw the error logs and the event log right before it froze up.
Mm-hmm.
I was always thinking software.
Okay.
Now, if it had been locking up with no other warnings or
Yeah.
errors, then maybe I would suspect hardware first. But with all
No,
the
I
errors
agree.
I was seeing, yeah,
No, I agree. And then I actually had a question for the folks that are listening because I'm pretty sure folks that were out there be like, well, why is it not rebooting hardware? But yeah,
yeah,
if the error logs point to some type of application, odds are it is something that's triggering this event.
yeah. So yeah, if you don't see anything, that's almost better because then you can look at hardware first. But I was seeing so many errors right before it. I thought, and it's a generic IIS error. It wasn't specific. I'm thinking, okay, they have their main software, they've got the antivirus, they've got four other things using IIS, and it's just telling me error in IIS. Which one is it? I mean, really, come on. Give me
Especially
some
with
kind of,
IIS is, you know, a lot of times you have to restart the service. I mean, it craps out, but for the fact that it freezes on you, that has to be frustrating.
yeah. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this is actually solved because it's going a few days before, but never a few days during the week. It goes over the weekend without issues, but we'll see.
Now, the question, since you're troubleshooting and the client knows this, are you charging by the hour?
When I do this kind of job, I don't charge anything while I'm doing it. So all in my work order system,
Mm-hmm.
I just put the notes of what I did.
Okay.
So when it's all over and it's fixed, I'll go back and see how much time I actually spent, and I'll just charge it an appropriate amount. So
Okay.
let's just say I stopped right now, and we've been troubleshooting it for a week, off and on. I might charge 2 hours.
Okay.
I mean, I put in more time, of course, but you're not going to capture all that time
Sure.
because a lot of it's research and errors online.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, so
And for those that could be listening and saying, these jobs are going to appear on your desk. For example, for me, I have a queue of things to do or the per se or cases, and every time there's one case that just drives me off the wall that defies any logic, defies any standard. And as soon as I fix that, I lean back and sip my coffee, I get one more, and I'm like, jeez. So these stuff does pop up.
Yeah, and I might be behind. I may have been able to charge 4 hours or 5 hours, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
realistically. But these kind of jobs are fewer and far between than the average daily calls.
Yes, that's correct.
A lot of the calls I get from this customer are, oh, I need you to, like today from the same place. I want you to block web-based email in the router,
Sure.
we have, so I can enable that. We have a watch guard. They have web blocker. It's a category. Web-based email. I go in, I reconfigure the router, save the configuration, test it. Takes 10 minutes. It's a half an hour minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So you have more of those than you do. So I'm sure I'm above lifetime on them. I can afford to charge them, be on the generous side. I mean, they're experiencing outages to where they think this is taking forever to get fixed. So they get a big bill for it. It leaves an even worse taste in their mouth
Yeah.
than if I said, look, they know it took me a week to troubleshoot it. I'm only getting a bill for 2 hours. They're happy about that.
Agreed.
Um, and of course, you'll get questions when it's happening. Am I getting billed for all this time? I don't want to pay a whole bunch of money. I'm like, well, let's worry about that when it comes. Well, I'm gonna charge what's fair, but clients, they'll complain. They complain before they even get a bill.
Oh yeah.
And I say, well, show me. I'm sorry, show me what bill you're talking about. Well, I didn't get a bill. Oh, you didn't get a bill, so you complain about a bill you didn't get. Great. Okay.
Mental note. Send certified letter. Attach a quarter.
Yes. I should send a quarter to everybody. Tape this over your server power button. So that's it for those jobs. I know we got a few emails to read.
Yeah. I find we have a stack, but since we're approaching the hour mark, we'll just read a few. First one comes from, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Dorgan. He says, I'm catching up on Podnutz Pro episodes. I was listening to the UPS episodes and was reminded of a call I had while I was working at Kensington. I had to investigate why UPS was smoking. No one seemed to know what had caused it. I finally found out that someone had tried to use the UPS to run a coffee pot during a power outage.
Mm.
And this happens more times than you think. Or if you live in a city that is cold, heaters will just destroy the UPSs.
That's what I see a lot, heaters.
Mm-hmm.
At the normally, of course, it's females down there keeping their feet warm, like a feet warmer. I see that a lot.
And I have to agree. In my past office, the accounting group was all the females, and they all had like a heater. I said, "All right, girls, you cannot be running these." Sorry. But,
or at least not put into the battery backup.
Exactly. But we're cold. But okay.
Get some thicker socks.
Oh man. Alrighty. This one is from Highlander, from who's always in a moderator. It says your last show, you had a guy wanting to save his PST files. This isn't a way to save the PST file, but he could set up save through Gmail or any service per se, an IMAP, and select the option to leave copy on the server. That way, if he ever has to reload Windows or Office, when he logs back into Gmail, it would re-download his old mail. It'll be archived online for him as long as he chooses. And that is one way. I mean, if you choose, especially with Gmail and an IMAP, leave a copy on the server, and the sub is archiving. But if you have a business that runs Google Apps, you might be able to use this. But if you're running in a Exchange environment, if you have IMAP enabled, Matt.
Yeah, well, a lot of businesses aren't going to want to run business email through a Gmail or Yahoo account anyway.
Well, some the bigger ones won't. But I know that but there are some small businesses that it does fit their needs. But yeah, You're right. Most businesses do have an exchange environment or